Hey there, friends and family. I hope you all are doing fantastic. It has been a minute. My work has taken me away from you, but it is exciting to be back today to introduce this Italian style potato pasta, which I know that you're going to love its final texture and how nutritious it is as well. Now, if you're visiting the channel for the first time, I would like to welcome you warmly and thank you for joining us today. Please, all of you, make sure that you're clicking on that like button to help promote these videos. It does help when I'm consistently uploading, but right now, with what's going on in the world as a frontliner, that kind of comes first. So thank you all for understanding. So what I've done so far is peeled my potatoes and I have washed them. My water is already come to a boil and I have not added any salt at the moment. We will hold off on that and add it later on. So we're going to boil these until fork tender. That should take about 15 minutes, depending on the amount of potatoes you're going to be using for the recipe. And talking about the amount, I have listed all the ingredients down below in the description box, including their measurements. So as you can see, it took about 15 minutes and it is now fork tender. So we're going to drain the potatoes at this point. Next step, friends and family, I'm going to improvise. As you can see, I have turned my colander and my local Ghanaian grinder or tapoli into a potato ricer. Yes, I went to try to buy a potato ricer because I do not have one of those. I do have a masher, but I'll tell you why not to use that in this recipe. So I went to try to buy a potato ricer and the price wasn't quite right. I was like, this is too expensive, so I'm just going to improvise. So I used the colander and the tapoli, and as you can see, it is working very well. Now, why do you need to use a potato ricer, really? Let me tell you why. So you'll want to mash the potatoes and at the same time introduce air into it, okay? You want to aerate it as you mash it, which will help tremendously with the texture of it, as well as the lightness of it. Once you have it in your mouth, it's going to feel like little clouds, which you don't find in most pastas. Also, it's nutritious, so it's win-win right here. So as you can see, we're done here. We're going to let it cool down. That's the next step, and it's a very important step, okay? Let it cool down. That should take about 10 minutes. And the reason why you want it to cool down is we're going to add an egg right now. Now, if you don't let it cool down and you put it in while it's still hot, obviously the egg is going to get scrambled, and we don't really want to do that here. So the best way to crack your egg into the whirl you've created in the mashed potatoes is to crack it into a separate bowl first, because you don't know, right? When you buy your eggs, you don't know if they're good or bad until you've cracked them. So if you crack it directly into the middle of your potatoes and it's a bad one, then you've just ruined the whole thing. You have to start all over. But I know my eggs are good, so but do it the right way. So I've added some flour and the salt. Okay, so the salt comes in now, not in the beginning when you're cooking the potatoes as you normally would. And the amount is really per your preference, because you can always season as you cook it, and you'll see what I mean eventually. So you add your flour, and it's all-purpose flour. Like I said, I have listed the ingredients down below in the description box with your amounts to help you easily replicate this very simple and quick potato pasta recipe. So what you're going to do is now combine all three ingredients. You don't want to knead aggressively. You want to just kind of bring them together, lightly doing so as I am doing. All right, so press together. All right. You don't want to form gluten, basically, is what we're trying to prevent here. And so it is well combined now. The next step is just clean the surface up, because we're going to let this rest for about 10 minutes before we proceed to the next step. So the way I found this recipe was at a religious international convention that myself and my family recently attended a few months ago. Because it's an international convention, there were people from all over the world, including this Italian family who were passing out souvenirs. Everybody was passing out souvenirs. Now, I happened to talk to them about my YouTube channel, Nanava's Kitchen, and so they noticed that I have a passion in cooking. So they thought the right thing to do was to give me a recipe. So they had this postcard size recipe with gnocchi on it, and it's a very simple one. So that's how I came up with this recipe. It was lovely to be at this convention. It was an eye-opening convention. My family and I felt really blessed to be there. So that's how I found this recipe. So there we go. So I have rolled it out. So I have let it rest for 10 minutes, and then I roll it. I take a piece, roll it out into a long log. I roll it out, and then I cut them into these small pieces. I try to cut them into the same size as possible. And so what I'm doing now is creating a design on it, and that's how gnocchi is done. You use a fork, and you kind of roll the fork over it lightly to create these indentations with the fork. They just look really pretty that way. So there you go. This is a labor of love, but let me tell you something. It is so worth it in the end. Now, my son, Zawadi, who is 5 years old, is extremely picky when it comes to just eating anything, especially with vegetables and anything he's never seen before. So if it's a food item he's never set his eyes on before, he is skeptical about even trying it. But he loved these. He went for seconds and thirds. I promise you, you and your family are going to fall in love with this recipe. It's simple and quick, so really try it. Let me know what you think. So the water has come to a boil, and now I'm going to just pour them in as I have done. And you will notice how slowly they rise to the surface of the water. That's how light these are. Like, I don't even have to say anymore. You can see it right before your own eyes. Yes, they're extremely light and enjoyable. Oh, yes, you'll love eating these. So we're going to boil them for about 10 minutes. They don't take very long to cook. The potatoes, mind you, are already cooked, so we just really need to cook the flour. Once they have cooked for about 10 minutes, you're going to go and take them out, okay? So use a ladle that has holes in them to remove them, so you strain the water at the same time. And so we're cooking them in batches. See how pretty they are with those beautiful indentations. So cook them in batches until you're done cooking them. Remove them and set them aside. Now we're going to pan fry them in some extra virgin olive oil and a little bit of butter. That's the next step. So my pan is on fire. I pour in my desired amount of extra virgin olive oil, which is a healthy kind of oil, but you can use whatever kind of oil you have on hand. And I put in just a little amount of butter because I love that flavor in here. So let that cook for about a minute until the batter starts turning kind of brown, because that sauce is so great around this pasta. Now I have thinly sliced some garlic, which also goes very well. I'm just gonna kind of toast these, all right, so I start seeing some caramelization. You don't want them to burn, because what happens to garlic when it burns is it becomes bitter, which is off-putting. You really don't want that here. So cook till you see them caramelizing, and immediately that happens, you're going to add your crushed black pepper, which is a dry item, so you don't need to cook that very much. Really, it's just going to perfume the oil. And then you add your gnocchis. Now when you add your gnocchis, it is going to immediately bring down the temperature of the garlic, the oil, and all the ingredients you have in the pan, so any burning will cease, okay? Now you're going to let it sit for about 2 minutes, because what you want is to caramelize or pan-sear the gnocchis. Then you're going to go in and start stirring. and add some parsley. Parsley works well here, but you can add cilantro or coriander leaves or any kind of herb you desire. And then turn it around a few times to combine evenly. And your first batch is done cooking. These are absolutely gorgeous, don't you think? Just take a look at them. And you cannot help but munch on them as you cook. They are so addictive. Wow. Glorious. That's how I describe these. So cook the entire batch and serve. And today I served these beautiful gnocchis with my pan-seared, pecan-crusted red snapper fillets, as well as some carrots, which I shredded or treated like spaghetti and cooked them in some olive oil and some salt, crushed black pepper, very simple. And here is my pecan-crusted, pan-seared red snapper fillet. Oh my gosh, what is gourmet? This is gourmet. You will think so too. And I hope you try it. My pan-seared red snapper is coming up shortly. Yes, here it is. Preview of it. So stay tuned. That recipe is coming up soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please click on that like button to help promote this video. I thank you. Make it a great day and have fun, especially in that kitchen.